Hey everybody, this is Erika.
And this is Tina.
And we are A92A. A92A stands for ages 9 to adult. That's how long we've been on this journey together as friends.
92 is also our high school graduation year.
And ages 9 to adult is a nod to the board game life, which we rockified as kids in order to live out our rock and roll fantasies. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is an extremely special day for us. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. We have such a badass vocalist, guitarist, talented songwriter who's been part of incredible bands over the year, including Motley Crue, the Dead Daisies, the Scream, Union, Rat, his own successful solo career. And now he's a published author. And of course, I'm talking about the one and only John Corabi. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.
I said the minute he joined us on camera, I'm like, you look like such a rock star. I mean, you are like the epitome of like cool rock star dude.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I tend to look at myself in the mirror now at age 63 and I go, oh my God, what happened?
We still think you look awesome.
Where did that other guy go?
Yeah, I bet. Well, don't we all? Don't we all? So John, you're here today for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, in June, Tina and I read your book for our book club, which we host every other month on Facebook Live. And so let's start with Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, which is your recently published autobiography. It just released in June, so it's basically still a brand new book. What made you decide to write Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, and what was that writing process like with your partner in crime there, Paul Miles?
To be honest with you, I had started thinking about an autobiography many years ago. It's funny for those who don't know me. I've been married and 3 times. I don't have a successful. My success rate as far as marriage goes is not very good. But anyway, I was sitting in my manager's office and I'd gone through, one marriage and then the Scream and then just like personal family things. My son was diagnosed with diabetes, my mother with cancer, and, then the Motley thing, Union thing. Then I got remarried. And my manager just said, when I was going through my kind of second divorce, he was like, you know what, Crab, like any other guy would have, like normal guy, like this is just insane, the shit that you stepped into like constantly. And we laughed about it. So he suggested I write a book, and he suggested a few names. I started writing it, and I just I would start doing like transcripts, and like, so these other writers were kind of helping me out, and it just never sounded like me. So I kind of put it to bed, and I'm like, it's too much. Like I don't seem to be able to get this together where it sounds like I'm speaking.
Right.
So I put it to bed, and then I thought about it a few times, but it's so weird. And you guys know, like being book readers, like everybody and their grandmother has done an autobiography now. It's like, if you look at, Aerosmith did Walk This Way, and then Steven did a book, and Joe did a book, and, and then now it's like, I was just somewhere and crew members from 70s bands were doing books. And, you know what I mean? And I'm just sitting there going, now, if I do one now, it's going to seem like I'm jumping on a bandwagon.
Yeah.
So I had nothing to do with it. 2019, I went to Australia. I did a few shows down there with my band, and I saw Paul. We're friends. And we were just all sitting around, even some of my band guys, and I was kind of telling stories. And Paul said, you need to write a book. He said that, like, and his thinking as a Motley fan was that I had a few chapters in the dirt. But he said, you're largely like this mystery. Like, he goes, you're the type of guy that comes out, like when I have new music out, I do all the rounds of press. And then he goes, and then you disappear and nobody knows anything about you. So he was like, you should do a book. And so I finally relented, and then COVID hit. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do a book, now's the time. I've got plenty of time on my hands. So we sat down. I got to give it to Paul. He really kind of conducted the first few interviews as an interview. Like, he really researched and went deep. And then he put it in a book format. And then at that point, I think we sent it back and forth to each other 8 or 10 times. And I would take things out and rewrite them and, you know, put it in my voice or whatever. And then I'd send it back to him, and then he'd rewrite. And then we just kind of did it that way. And and I'm really pleased with it. It, like, after reading it myself 8 or 10 times, I really feel like it came across as John Corabi speaking.
Yeah, it really did. And even in the foreword that Paul wrote before the book, you know, began with chapter 1, it kind of sounded like he was a personal friend of yours and he was a fan of your music and of you individually. And so I think maybe that was the perfect person for you to partner with, because he really did seem to have a connection to you that came through in the way he wrote it.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, like I met Paul years ago when I was doing this band called ESP, which is the Eric Singer Project. It was just like a little fun side thing we used to do. And we were in Australia. I met Paul finally. And then I had seen him a few times since then in New York and LA. And you know, he would write to me on occasion, like an email or something. And so when we finally sat down and talked about it, it was very easy to talk to him because we were friends. But he was also, a lot of people don't realize this, he has a website called Chronological Crew that he started back in 96 or 97, which was just the entire history of Motley Crue. He did so much research on it that even when they did The Dirt, the book and the movie, they kind of had him go through it and proofread everything and make sure that timelines were correct, the information was correct, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
So he really kind of asked a lot of things that a fan would, I guess, be interested in. But then as it turned out, there was other stories and other things in my life outside of music that he was equally like blown away about. You know, when I, like, for example, if you guys read the book, you know what I'm talking about, that my whole incident with the serial killer guy.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, in Philadelphia. So
yeah, we have questions about that, but anyway, yeah.
So when I talked with him about it, he was like, what? Like, I never heard of this guy. So then he started Googling, and he was able to fill in a lot of the blanks and times and dates and things that I was a little vague on. But he really did a great job. I think, you know, but again, it was funny, like, he's from Australia. I'm, you know, born and raised in Philadelphia, lived in LA, you know, Nashville now. And so he was sending me things, and I had to go in and kind of, like, I would change things. I'm like, dude, that's not how I talk. Like, you know, we say things in America like we'll say in a while, you know, where they say whilst.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't say that.
Yeah, no, that's, dude,
whilst out.
This isn't Shakespeare. This is John Corabi. Let's just drop an F-bomb and call it a day.
Throw in some more cuss words.
So we were laughing.
Cuss words and exclamation point and call it a day.
We were laughing about that, John, because first of all, I'm so glad you relented and agreed to work on this book with him, because Paul was right. We've known of you for years and your work and think you're very talented, but we knew literally nothing about you. So reading the book was really a treasure for us, and all of this stuff came through. But we were laughing actually about, do you think he uses the F word as much as it's in the book?
Yeah, I'm kind of restraining myself
right now.
Because I don't going to watch.
Oh, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
So.
It's for adults. It's fine.
Yeah, it was funny. And we did realize it was funny when we went to, I was just in Australia, and I'm sorry, I'm sweating my ass off out here in Florida right now, and it's like 127 degrees. Um, but we went to Australia and we unpacked the books, and I was kind of going through it and I was looking at some photos, and I saw one thing that got through that none of us actually caught. But there's a photo of me and my mother on the night that my son was born, and it says me and mom
Mom.
at the hospital. And
You don't call her mom?
Damn it. He got one through.
He
got one past me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Do you have a superhuman memory? The details that you provided were incredible. You knew the names of every kid in the neighborhood, the floor plans of their houses. Like, is that stuff that stays with you because of your childhood?
Well, it's weird. Like, if somebody walked up to you and said, "Hey, what was," if they just asked you a specific question and wanted the answer right there, I don't think most people could answer it. I think once you start diving into, like really diving into things start coming back to you as you're telling the story.
Mm.
And so, and the fact of the matter is, I never really did get caught up in the whole drugs and alcohol thing. So my memory, I think I still have most of my brain cells, not all of them, but most of them.
Great.
Yeah. Although it is interesting, Tina and I grew up together. We've known each other since we were in about third grade, I believe. And, I could tell you the floor plan of Tina's house. Like I could tell you exactly where everything was. Yeah. I mean, I think some of those things just kind of stick with you, but you did have a lot of details in the book. It was pretty impressive, actually.
And I'm, to be honest with you, like, I hope they're right. Like, you know what I mean? But I made sure.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties, folks. I think we may have.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
Okay. Yeah. So there is a paragraph in the beginning of the book where I do just a disclaimer in case like the living room was on the right instead of the left. I just said I remember this to the best of my Jameson mind so ability, whatever. So
it's great. It's great.
Well, in the book, that first section of it was pretty hard for me to read. Like as a mom, like you share some pretty horrific stories that happened during your childhood, including witnessing a fatal overdose, the molestation of your sibling, murders by a neighborhood. I mean, the murder story was out of hand. I mean, that was like not anything I can imagine ever experiencing and having close contact with. How do you think those things play out in your daily life now? Do you think you're still affected by some of these things? I know you said the guy that died in front of you really had an impact because it kind of kept you off of drugs for the rest of your life. Do you feel like some of these things are still with you?
Yeah, I had two incidents in my life when I was younger. One was the thing about that guy Bird. We used to call him Birdman. Mm-hmm. And I think it had such an impact on me because Birdman impacted me in a few ways, not just the drugs. He was like this kind of like, hippie, dude that used to just sit on the corner of my house and had a bunch of like incredibly gorgeous hippie girls sitting around him. And he would do like, he had this acoustic guitar and he would just play these songs like Creedence Clearwater Revival, and he would play Jefferson Airplane and, like just all these songs, and everybody would just sit around and sing. So from a musical point of view, I just thought he was cooler than shit. And he was about 8, 9, 10 years older than me. And then the thing when I, as in the story, I was playing pinball one day and I just turned around and I happened to see him kind of tying off and sticking a needle in his arm. And it freaked me out. Like I knew something was weird, but then when he fell and he literally, like I still didn't know what was happening. The old man chased me out of the store and called the police, and then they came and, they brought him out in a, like stretcher with a sheet. And I'm like, oh man, like this, I don't know what's happening right now, but it's not good. Now, as I got older, I was able to realize like, oh, like he was doing a drug and, intravenously, and he didn't make it. Mm. And so that always kind of stuck with me. And because he was an idol of mine as well. Mm. And then later, when I met my wife, Valerie, her uncle Donnie he was kind of a stained glass artisan in New York. And he had his own business with this other guy named John. And again, they were doing, like, they had all these orders and they were running behind schedule. And John went out and bought some cocaine, and he was running to the bathroom, and he would do a line and he'd work another 5 or 6 hours and then do a line or whatever. And he wound up just dropping dead on the floor. His heart exploded.
Yeah.
And so I then almost became like almost Larry David-ish about like, oh, great. I'll be the guy that does fucking cocaine one time and my heart will explode. Mm-hmm. So anytime anybody offered me drugs, I was like, no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, it's grown even through personal experiences. I was just telling someone a few days ago that now I've kind of gotten to the point where I won't even accept a shot or anything from anybody unless I've literally watched them pour it. Because I had somebody at a gig I was with, God, I don't know if I was with Rat or I was with this cover band, but I did a gig in Las Vegas, and a girl came up to me and handed me a shot of whiskey and a cigarette. And I was like, oh yeah, do the rock star thing. I slammed the whiskey, I smoked the cigarette. But by the time the end of the set came, I could barely I couldn't do anything. I had no idea what was going on. They literally took me back to my hotel room. We were doing 2 nights in the same club, and I literally slept for like 14 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. And I got up the next day. I felt like shit. I went back to the club, and the girl's friend came the next night and said, hey, are you feeling okay? I saw them drag you out of the club last night. And I go, oh man, I still feel like shit. And she goes, yeah, I got into a huge argument with my friend. She thought because I was in Motley and she had read all the escapades in the dirt. So she gave me a shot with heroin in it.
Oh.
And a cigarette laced with like some hallucinogenic or some weird thing. So I smoked the cigarette and got a dose. And then I drank a shot and got another dose.
Jeez.
And I was fucking pissed, and I felt like shit for like 3 days.
Ugh.
And I'm like,
wow.
So you kind of figure it out as you go. But I was just, after seeing John and Birdman, I'm like, okay, note to self, I'll never snort anything, and I'll never fucking shoot anything ever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me, don't whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I think that's super cool. Yeah.
John, I want to talk a little bit about the Motley Crue era, because we really appreciated getting your side and some more information about that. We didn't know about some of those challenges that were happening with the record label and maybe a bad tour strategy and very little support during that time. What kind of feedback are you getting from readers who, are really excited to get your take on this whole thing?
Well, nobody's really specifically commented on like one thing. Overall, the response has been great. Everybody said, oh my God, dude, it was a great read. one of the other things people have said to me is, for as thick as the book is, for as many pages as it is, it was very easy to read, and they did it in like 2 or 3 days, done. And they were just happy with the stories. Nobody's really talked to me about, oh, the Motley thing, or I guess the one thing that's really making probably the most noise right now is the fact that I went and drove a truck around America for like a year.
Yeah, that's
you know, but it's funny because even this guy that I was doing an interview with the other day, he said, as long as I've known you, he goes, if you really think about your life, you were in Philadelphia and you got tired of it and went to LA. Then you got tired of that, you went to Nashville. And he goes, I just kind of feel like you're always on the move in some way or another. So the fact that Rat decided to take a year off, and I said, you know what, I'm going to kind of live a childhood fantasy here. I've always been fascinated with trains and trucks. And the only reason why I didn't do the train is because they said it was like 5 years of education to learn how to drive a freight train. So I'm like, okay, great, whatever. How long does it take to drive a truck? 3 weeks, I'm in. So I literally went, I got my license, I did the thing, I passed with flying colors. I bought a pair of work boots. I pulled my hair back in a ponytail. I grew a full beard, and I wore a baseball cap for 8 months, and I went out and I saw America. It was awesome.
Was it? That's cool.
I had a great time. Oh, and a little side note, as much music as I've done my whole career, not that you guys need to hear this, but as much music as I've done in my whole life, I never saw more boobies than until I was driving a truck.
Do truckers get flashed a lot?
You would be surprised how many women flash truck drivers as they're passing the truck. And
what? I had no idea this was happening.
They'll pull their boobs out and then do this thing. And so it's like, yeah, okay.
I've never heard of this. My son and I just made a 12-hour drive to Nashville last week and came home on Friday. And I was thinking about truck drivers and about that lifestyle just in general, because it just seems so kind of lonely, and you're just out on the road and you're driving for hours and hours. But I had no idea this was happening. Like, I've never heard of this before.
You know what? It is very lonely. But it was something that I kind of needed at that point in my career. Being from Iowa, you'll appreciate this. I played a place in Dubuque, Iowa.
Okay.
Called the Pig Pen.
Oh.
And we did an outdoor concert, and it was Dokken, Rat, Warrant, LA Guns, and Firehouse.
Wow, that's a great lineup. Okay,
now this is the part that's crazy, because this was right around the time I was going through all my shit with my wife, the divorce, and I literally sat on the side of the stage, and I was looking out in the audience, and when Firehouse played, there was about 30 people there in this massive outdoor thing that probably held 2,000, 3,000 people. Then LA Guns went on. There was maybe 50 people there. And it grew, but it grew by the end of the night when Rat and Dokken played, there was maybe 300 or 400 people there. And I had a bit of a panic attack, because I was sitting there going, what is happening right now? Like, any one of these bands 10 years ago on their own would have completely sold this out. What is happening? So we got back from the tour, and that's when Warren DeMartini, he said, you know what, I think we're going to take like a year off. I want to take some time off. And I was going through a divorce. So I just sat there and I went, you know what, I'm going to do something different. Just, I need to clear my head. And it was actually very therapeutic. I think that's why I liked it so much. I brought a guitar with me. I would drive 8-10 hours a day. And then I'd pull over into a rest area or truck stop. I'd pull my guitar out and I would just work on little ideas and lyrics or whatever. And I did it for about 8 months. And I saw so much shit that I had never seen in a tour bus, because you're always traveling at night.
Right.
It was really exciting for me.
Wow.
And so, you know, maybe 8 months, 9 months in, 10 months, Warren called and said, hey, we're going on tour with Poison. I said, okay. I drove the truck back. I handed the guy the keys. I said, thank you very much. I'm going on tour. And at that point, he went, what do you mean you're going on tour? Like, what? I said, oh, I'm a musician. And when I told him who I was, he almost lost his shit. He was like, oh my God, no way you sang with Molly. You played guitar with Brad. Yep.
Oh, you had no idea. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I never told anybody anything. I just went out and I did my thing. And, you know, they yelled at me when I did something wrong. They applauded me when I did something right. And I just went out and I, you know, but it made me appreciate the other side of the fence, the people that have to literally get up and go to work every day, and how hard people work. Like, just even some of the guys that, like, you know, you back a truck up, you open the doors, you back it in, and the guys that unload the truck. I literally just sit and watch these guys in 100-degree weather unload these trucks, and I'm like,
yeah,
I have it pretty fucking easy, just standing on stage with a guitar for 2 hours a night.
Yeah,
and I can make double, triple, quadruple what you guys are making in like an hour. So it was eye-opening. It was therapeutic, and it definitely gave me the break that I needed when I needed it.
That's awesome. But I think that came through in the book too. And Tina and I even talked about that when we did the review of the book, that one of the things that's so sort of endearing about you is you do feel like you have a connection to regular people. Like you have this rock star look, and of course you are a star in your own right, and yet you come across as very approachable. At least that's the way the book sort of portrayed you.
And it's weird because my parents, and I had an uncle that actually kind of helped me out a bit in the music industry or tried to help me get off the ground. And, you know, they always just said one thing to me that just stuck with me. And that was, like, life and success is like a ladder. Like, remember, every time you step up a rung, that's a success. Do you know what I mean? But they always told me, remember how you treat everybody on each rung of that ladder, because when you get to the top, you will come back down again. And everybody that was on each one of those rungs is going to treat you accordingly. And so I was just like, you know, that's kind of a cool life lesson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, you know, so listen, we all lose our patience. I've lost my patience with, you know, some fans that were maybe a little too pushy, or I still do. I mean, I still have fans that write to me and you know, they give me their viewpoint on why I shouldn't have a beard or why I shouldn't wear my hair the way that I do. Oh, dude, that looks like shit. You should fucking shave that thing off. And I'm like, oh, seriously?
Yeah. Thanks for the input.
Thanks for the input. Didn't ask. Fuck. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever. But again, that to me is, you know, I would never say that to somebody, you know, you just don't, that's just somebody that has no social, like they're socially illiterate is the word I'm thinking of. So whatever, I'll argue with to a point now, like, I'm just going to let this go because they're never going to get my point.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But speaking of kind of like what you're up to these days, and I know you're still, you know, a creative person. So of course you're still writing, you said even when you were driving the truck around the United States. You were playing guitar, you were working on some things. Where do you find your inspiration these days? And what is your process as you create? And has it changed over the years? You mentioned you're in your 60s now. Has it changed?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's face it. When I was doing the Scream and the music prior to the Scream, you know, I was a young man full of vigor and life. And, you know, like a lot of people, I just wrote about like what girls I wanted to bed down and what parties I wanted to go to. And, you know, just that's where my head was at.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as I'm older, you know, I've had daughters now and granddaughters, and you know, it's like, oh my God, like I can't even listen to those lyrics now. Like it's just like, Jesus, what was I thinking? But honestly, like you cannot look around you, just life, TV, news, world events. You cannot look around you and not find inspiration. It's if you can't find inspiration in life, you're blind. It's right there for the taking. So I find now that my things are just about like, you know, what make like just be happy. Just be happy. Why can't we talk to each other? Even if we have different opinions on anything, why can't we talk to each other? You know what I mean? So there's tons of life lessons out there. There's tons of things out there that I think should inspire people, you know, but to each his own.
Yeah.
Whatever.
John, what's been your proudest accomplishment both within music and outside of music?
Well, in music, I would say probably my greatest accomplishment. I know a lot of people aren't going to understand this, but I would have to say my greatest accomplishment was with the Scream getting our first record deal. That's what I did. That's what like the whole trip was for. Like I literally drove across country in an old ambulance and I finally did it. It's like, and again, sorry, my analogies are a little risque sometimes, but it's like you can, like, I guess a defining moment for all of us, even men or women. You can go through life and you can have 5 husbands, you can have 5 wives, you can have, you know, all the shit, but you're always going to remember that first dude you were rolling around in the back of a Chevy Nova with, you know what I mean? You're always going to remember your first. That's I don't care how you do it, that one you will never forget. So that then, and then it all comes to, because it all puts everything together. You're like, oh, that's what that's for. Got it. I like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it just boom. So I would have to say the Scream's first record deal. Like that's the one that put me really, you know, for lack of a better term, I apologize. That was the one that popped my cherry, and that was the one that put me on the map. That's how Nikki Sixx found me.
Well, that's what broke you into the music business. So that makes perfect sense that would be, you know, that's the first thing that ever put you out there. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it was like, and then to boot, it was a great band. And, you know, and then we got to work with a legendary producer like Eddie Kramer. So that's like, you know, that's like you guys like rolling around in the backseat of a car and then going, yeah, I was with the guy that was, he was the football quarterback. And then 20 years later, you go, holy fuck, it was Brad Pitt.
Right.
I had no idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's the Scream for me.
Okay.
My greatest accomplishment off the field or out of the backseat of the car with or it might be right back in the car, would be the birth of my son. He drives me absolutely fucking batshit crazy sometimes, but I couldn't be more proud of him, and he's a great kid.
And how old is your son now?
He just turned 35.
Wow, that's awesome.
Is
Yeah,
he still?
he could be one of your sugar daddies.
No, no.
Maybe. I mean, we're a little old too. We're a little old for him as well. But I'm a mom of one boy as well, so I get that. Boys are awesome.
Okay, so you guys just froze up again. Are we frozen? All right, there you
Nope,
go.
we're
I
okay
think
now.
okay.
We're back. We're back.
Yeah, but I will say this as a side note to any of the new fathers out there. I pray that you have sons, because daughters, no. Like,
No, just no.
just no. As much as my son drives me batshit crazy, my daughter was like she was way worse. And just the thought of her, the conversation we had when she goes, yeah, listen, I'm 15 and, I'd like to maybe go to the, clinic and maybe get some birth control. We're like, what? Wait, excuse me? My wife at the time was beet red, like Marlboro red. And I had to take her outside, and I was like, okay, here's the deal. You don't even smoke, but I'm going to tell you to smoke one of my cigarettes right now. And it was like, we had to, you just don't want to think of your daughter that way.
Yeah.
So
I get it. I don't want to think of my son that way either, to be honest with you. Ugh,
well,
no,
your mom, it's funny though, it's funny though. I had a friend of mine who's also a dad. He was like joking. He was like, he's got boys and he's got girls. He goes, the weirdest thing is, you have a daughter and she comes home and she tells you she had sex, you want to kill her and the guy she was with. Your son comes home and says that I slept with an entire women's basketball team and you're high-fiving them. It's like, there's a little bit of a weird thing there.
It's absolutely a double standard. It absolutely is. Yes.
Yeah.
John, what do you have coming up next? Do you have any projects in the works, collaborations? You writing new stuff? What's going on with you?
Well, I've actually released a couple of new songs. I can't even say recently. I've been letting them sit while I try to figure out this newfangled voodoo called downloading and streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have a song out called Casi Bella.
I just watched that video. It's a great song.
Yeah, it's which is Italian for she's so beautiful. And then I have a new song out as well called Your Own Worst Enemy. I'm getting ready to release more music. It's basically, I was doing a record and my producer, Marty Fredrickson, he was like, dude, nobody's buying any records. Just do a song, a video, take your time doing the album, make sure that the album's got like 10 stellar songs on it, 12 songs, whatever. And he goes, just take your time. Just put music out there so people are talking about you. They know you're still alive. He goes, and he was like, it's all about the streaming now. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I don't know if I'm doing it the right way, the wrong way, whatever, but that's what I'm doing. And I'm getting ready now, finally starting to get back to work and do some shows. So life is groovy in John Corabi land, as long as hopefully this heat will turn down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sweating like a prostitute in a lumberjack camp.
It is so hot everywhere, but I can only imagine in Florida right now with the humidity, it's got to be pretty brutal. So
it is. I think as soon as I'm done with you guys, I'm going to jump in the pool for a minute and then go songs. But
perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, John. I knew this interview would be tough for us to wrap up in a half hour, only because you have so many amazing stories that we read in the book. And so I could talk to you all day long, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. We really enjoyed your book. We encourage people to go out there, buy it, leave reviews. You can, of course, find it on Amazon. Be sure to follow John on Instagram at John Corabi Official, and check out his website, johncorabi.com, where you can also find a link to purchase the book and John's videos, upcoming tour dates, which, by the way, are you performing at Monsters on the Mountain in Tennessee later this month?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
I'll be there the whole weekend, and then I'm heading to, right from there, I'm doing 4 or 5 shows with Richie Kotzen.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing like Wisconsin, and we'll be near you, but not, you know. So we're doing Wisconsin, Indiana, and then I end in Nashville. And then I'm heading out with a band called Brother Kane. I'm going to Mexico, and then I'm doing 2 months in Europe.
Wow.
Just saying, if you guys want to go, we can make this happen.
Yes. Yes, please. I'm on board with that. Well, that's amazing. Obviously, you're very busy, and that's awesome. We love to hear from you. Your new music is amazing. And this is where we usually have a listener call out section. We want to hear all about your favorite John Corabi music. What are your favorite John Corabi music moments? Have you read the book Horseshoes and Hand Grenades? Are you a fan of his solo work? All week on Instagram and Facebook, we'll be talking about it. So tell us what you think. Of course, you can follow us and interact with us at our website, www.a92a.life, on Instagram at a92a_life, or check out our Facebook page. And in the meantime, keep ratting those bangs and banging those heads, and we will be back next week.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.